Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Taking a Break with Gen X Jace and Boomer 2. I'm sorry, my screen looks like I'm getting possessed by ghosts. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I woke up a little early today, and early to me is like 8:15. So that was early for me, at least recent times. And yeah, getting some sleep coming off of Valentine's Day. It's a long weekend because of President's Day. I got my granddaughter coming over tomorrow to swim. So
I'm
it's a good weekend overall. And it's fucking 35 degrees here. So that's nice.
about to say to swim. You got an indoor pool or something, or
Well, yeah, in our condo complex, we have an indoor
okay?
pool. And when we came in here, um, when we moved here like 8 years ago, we go, wow, we got a pool. It's indoor. We just walk across the parking lot, and there's this big like hippodrome type pool thing. They got a little bit of a workout thing, and then they've got a sauna too. I go, this is perfect. You and I can, my wife and I can go over there and get exercise a couple times, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Never happens. Never happens. They were when they were first bringing us through. They showed us all the workout stuff. The climbers and the treadmills and stuff like that. And the lady who was showing us looked at me, says, "Yeah, they've got all this stuff, and they've got the treadmill, and they got that." I go, "Yeah, I'm never using that. So if
Where
you can cut that off my HOA bill, that'd be good."
you got a chair with a bar, that's what I'll be using the
Pretty
most.
much.
Yeah,
I
I remember growing up with my grandmother, my late grandmother. She was probably as close to like you and your granddaughter were, my mom's mom, and she would take me swimming and watch me and everything. She there for a while. She'd take me and she had to go and watch Police Academy movies along with Star Wars movies, and she just thought it was just god awful. I remember
yeah.
watching Return of the Jedi with her, and she was just aghast at how the kids just loved Jabba the Hutt. He goes, he was just so awful. But she had a apartment. She lived up in Dallas. So I think I mentioned that I would fly up there on like Saturday mornings here. But one of her apartments she got, the pool was like right there in front of her door. So I
Cool.
was in hog heaven. And yeah, and your granddaughter and grandkids will remember, like I do with mine, when they're older about how, those memories with the grandparents. I mean, I mean, I'm not real close with a lot of my family because a lot of them are mouth breathing red hat wearers, if you know what I'm saying. But
I do.
I don't miss a lot of my family, but I miss her. And it's just, she's the one that my dad didn't step up, but I mean, she literally saved my mom and me from being homeless. She was more of a father than my dad was. And Judy and your grandkid, your other grandkid, your boy, they're gonna remember these times. I mean, it's something that, will live with them forever, like it does me.
Well, yeah, I know you're absolutely right. I had two sets of grandparents, and they lived until I was adult, which was rare. And I spent a lot of time with them. One grandparents, I had one grandparents, a group of grandparents that lived in a suburb, and my grandfather was kind of the salt of the earth guy, and every other day he'd go up to Sally's, and everybody said, what the fuck is Sally's? And it was the Salvation Army thrift store. And he's like in his 60s, 70s, and he'd always come back with something like an electric guitar, which he couldn't play.
Yeah.
And one day he came back with an Articac mini bike, and he didn't have any place to do it except the backyard. So he had me and my brother out there in the backyard riding a mini bike all around. I had other grandparents that lived in an apartment complex, and they had a pool, so we were always there. I had a cabin. We always go up to the cabin. So you're absolutely right. Um, I'm 65 years old, and I remember everything about my grandparents, and it was very formative in my life. So I've said that before. I said if I could be half the grandfather that either of my grandfathers were, I'd be doing something. So I'm giving it the old college try.
I think a lot of times parents, the grandparent, they kind of spoil the grandparent kids more than they did their own kids. So it's
Oh, no
like,
question.
it's
Well, I
like,
like my grandkids better than my kids. Just I got to be upfront about it.
yeah, well, you're not with them all the time like you were your kids. So
Yeah,
I mean, you get a break and stuff. So yeah, I
that's
mean,
true.
I just remember, I was kind of an accident, and my mom just telling me that story every time we're like down in Corpus where I was born, which is about 2 hours from here on the Gulf. She's like, "Oh, that's where I called her Nanny because I couldn't say Granny, so I said Nanny." And she told her that, oh, I'm pregnant or whatever because I was kind of an accident, and she said, oh, she was upset at first, but then again, she was buying baby clothes. So I mean,
Yeah,
I just can't fathom because my mom has had people who were that age that happened that they had to give their kids up because their kids weren't their parents weren't understanding, and they regret that. So I mean, it's tough when you're that old, but I mean, it's my grandmother, let my mom keep me, so to speak, I guess like a pet. So I
yeah.
mean, I'm not judging anybody that doesn't happen because everybody's situation is different. But I mean, it's a lot of the stuff wouldn't have happened if it weren't for her, and I know my life wouldn't have been as, I mean, I can remember when I would go up there in high school and I was started smoking and I would smoke Marlboros, but she had the Virginia Slims and she would give me those Virginia Slims because I was a cheap high school student. Yeah, I was 17, I was smoking, ooh, breaking the law. But I would put those Virginia Slims in the Marlboro pack because people wouldn't think I'm, playing for the other team. And they tasted just the same because they're made by the same company. And I remember one time at Six Flags, this girl, hey, can I bum a cigarette? And I just ignored her because she's like, well, fuck you then. It's like, yeah, you can hate me, but you ain't gonna know I smoke Virginia Slims. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no shit.
and that I miss her a lot. And and it's every time when she died in '08, she would die in a while, and every time there's a Trace Adkins song, it's called "You're Gonna Miss This," and it's just about enjoy what you got now because you're gonna look back one day and God damn, I wish I would have, and that's true with anything, there's an old song, don't know what you got till it's gone. I mean, it's life is so precious and so short that you just, you gotta just, take a break, so to speak, and just, enjoy what you have when you're there because it doesn't last forever.
Well, and I'm looking at my son, and my son gets a little frustrated with my granddaughter because she's a lot. She's kind
Yeah.
of precocious. She's funny. She's smart, and I keep looking at her, and I think that's what's going to make you special when you get older. That's what's going to make you a leader, successful. And
Yeah.
I keep telling him that, and he goes, "Yeah, but I have to deal with that." I go, "Motherfucker, I did deal with it. You and your brother weren't any fucking better, except she's probably smarter and definitely cuter than you were." So, um, but it all depends on where you are in life. If you're a mom or dad, and I'm looking at my son, he's got a job that's fairly important. He's got a daughter. He's got a new son. He's got a wife. He's now got a house. He's got to deal with a lot of stuff. I got to tell you, when you're in your 30s,
Yeah.
that's a tough time because you're fucking juggling everything, and to be able to sit back and enjoy some of the things you have um, may not be easy because you got a lot of pressure on you. So I give him credit for that. Being a retired grandfather, I don't have to worry about shit. I can go take my granddaughter or grandson, go get in trouble, do whatever. My granddaughter would say to me, "Oh, my dad will never let me do that." I go, "Do you do everything your dad tells you to do?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I got news for you. Your dad, I'm his dad. So who's the fucking boss?"
It is. Yeah. It's
My
probably it's probably
my son
harder.
doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, it's probably harder for him because she's probably more like you than he seems pretty reserved and everything like that. But like you said, he's got to be the adult.
Yeah,
He gets to
it's a
spoil him.
lot.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just kind of growing up, I kind of saw like I think it's really sad when parents try to kill the creativity in kids.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Excuse me. They try to, take that, they break that spirit because kids are just, they have all these dreams and everything. And I think a lot of it, like the racism and like the attitude, a lot of that comes from the parents, and because you just
Oh,
see,
absolutely.
And I mean, I'm not a parent or nothing like that, but I was a kid at one time. And I just remember, certain adults in my life, they tried to destroy that. They tried because they were unhappy, they wanted you to be unhappy. And I think that really sucks is when you see like a kid that really has no chance or no choice has to be raised in that stuff. Because I mean, it's just, maybe sometimes adoption is best if you can't do it, because I mean, there's some adopted parents that, like, one of my best friends, he's adopted. His parents were great. I mean, I wish they would have adopted me. I mean, and I think, and my friend, to his benefit, that, hey, do you ever want to find out? He goes, no, they gave up on me, but my parents, that's my parents. So it's like, just because you're not related by blood, you can still be family. I believe that.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes the blood relatives aren't so great. I had a mother that was awesome, a father that was shit, and we had the mix of both of them. Fortunately, the father wasn't around much because he's always working allegedly, and so fortunately, I had an opportunity to come out the other side with some reasonable thoughts and not be as crazy as that. But people have asked me, they said, "Don't you wish you go back to be 35?" As I sit here at 65, no, I really don't. Because that was hard in
Yeah.
that period with all that shit going on. You got to worry about the kids and all this stuff. Now I only have to really worry about my wife and I, and we got ourselves covered. And then everything else we can just pour into our grandkids. So we have a lot more time. We have a lot more resources to give the kids. And, maybe that's what a grandparent's supposed to be, somebody to fill in those spots that the parents can't while they're working their ass off.
It's funny. I grew up in a, evangelical house, with my father, and their biggest thing was the woman's biggest job was to procreate and have kids. And
Yeah.
there's a segment of that population that agrees if you're single and never had kids, you're worthless.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing that means less to me than A, a Trump supporter, and B, an evangelical. Because, it's like, there's that movement, I think, with Turning Point and everything, the great Super Bowl halftime show that they produced. They believe that, if you have no kids, you're worthless. And that's something that I grew up listening to, and I've never really wanted kids because I was a kid once, and a lot of them were mean fuckers. And there's a lot of people that probably shouldn't be parents that are.
Oh, no question.
I think I would have been
Like
a
Trump's parents,
I
like
think I
Donald
would have
Trump himself.
I think I would have been a good parent, but I would have been a lousy husband because I like kids, you know what I mean? And not in the Epstein way, but let's clarify that. But I always got along with kids, but having a significant other there, I would get very bored very easy. So like I was always saying, yeah, I could adopt a kid, but I don't know if I'd get married because I don't know if I could put up a relationship because I don't like somebody constantly nagging on me. I have my one mother and that's enough.
Yeah.
And not all marriages are that way, not all women are that way. It's like you go there and you paint with a brush, you just swipe it over. Not all people, I mean, I just never found the right one. I always found ones that wanted to do there. But I think I would have been a good dad because, I'm a good uncle, but I just would have made a lousy husband. And I think a lot of times it's better for a family if they have the mom and dad. I was raised by a single mom and single dad. But I think it benefits the kid, but I don't think it's the end of the world if they're raised by a single parent, especially a single mom. Because I think single moms are, probably the backbone of a lot of this country because the dads are a lot of deadbeats.
Yeah, no question. Now, I will tell you this. I've been married 42 years, and marriage is fucking difficult. Always, the joke is God made man, and then he thought he'd want a little entertainment. So he put women on the earth that think 180 degrees differently. Now, this ought to be fucking funny. And somebody says, "What's the secret to being married so long?" And being married 42 years is an accomplishment, uh, but it's perseverance, man. Dealing with shit,
Oh yeah.
you know. We all have our issues, and we all can do stupid stuff, and we met at 21 and now we're 65. We went through a lot of transitions in life. At least I did, as a young man to an old man. Uh, and You can look back on it. And I would bet anybody who's married would look back on 40 years of marriage and probably regret a bunch of things. And, things didn't go great. It didn't look good for a time. But again, it's the perseverance. You made the choice, you have the core. People are people. So you're going to have your arguments, you're going to have your difficulties, you're going to have your rough patches or whatever. But like I told my son, when it comes to kids, because everybody wants to tell you how to raise your kids,
Yeah.
or marriages, and everybody wants to tell you how to be married. The proof is in the pudding. And this is something, when we were raising our kids, we had them in daycare, and some people said, oh, you shouldn't have them in daycare. I always told my wife, I said, well, the proof is in the pudding, meaning, how did it end up? And so, when my kids grew up and they were smart and they went to college and they did all the things, it worked. Whether you like the way we did it or not, the end result was good. And it's the
Yeah.
same with marriage. In spite of the rough patches, all the fucking crazy shit, here I sit 42 years later, proof's in the pudding. We're happy. We're doing stuff together. We're hanging out together. We like being together. Regardless of all that shit that happened before, this is where we ended up.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate. Not everything is easy. Your
No.
jobs aren't easy. Marriage ain't easy. Parenting's not easy. But if you persevere and you do the job you're supposed to do instead of running away, in the end, you'll get some kind of reward.
No, yeah. I mean, I can see that too. I mean, it's like I said, I don't think marriage was for me, but I mean, it obviously works for
It
other people.
works, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's not all the
if
time, but
yeah, well, then that's the thing. I know people who aren't married or people who didn't have kids. People, didn't God tell us we got free will? We can do what we want to do and make the choices and deal with the choices in the end. Now you sit here and you're not married, you don't have kids. The proof's in the pudding. How you doing now?
I'm fine.
Did you make the right choices?
I think for myself, yes.
Perfect. Then you
Yeah,
did what you're supposed to do.
yeah. I mean, I mean, I think, we get too caught up in trying to find the meaning of life. We quit living it in the middle of it because,
Right.
I never wanted that whole family because I didn't really grow up with it, and I've had relationships, but I mean, it's just, I've known enough to see how some of my friends have gotten married. They got married when they were young and they got divorced. I mean,
Yeah.
and I know people that have been married that have been unfaithful, during
Yeah.
their marriage. You know what I mean? And it's just like I don't know why you get married to do that. And you see these people that go through all this stuff, and you're like, why are you getting married? If you can't be faithful to somebody, why get married? I mean, why do the headache? And I think people are just in the moment of stuff. But I think you need to, like you said, people give you advice how to raise your kids. People give me advice, well, you should get married and settle down. And it's like, I'm good. I think I've known enough for myself that I think that, I can't tell you how to live your life. I can only take care of mine. And that's kind of been my philosophy that I've tried to live. It's like, are you sad you never had kids or got married? No, I'm good. I mean, will it suck when they find me dead on the couch after 2 weeks, and somebody checking on me? Yeah, but I won't be there. So I mean, it is what it is.
Well, and I think you asked why people get married. And many people get married for the right reason. You're in love and you want to build a future and have a family and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot of insecurity in this country and why people buy big houses they don't need and they can't afford, why they buy fancy cars that they probably can't afford and don't need, why they get married early and who they pick. Oh, he's handsome or she's beautiful and she's this and he's that. I think a lot of people do everything in life to give people the impression that they're successful or smart or good people. You know, you'll see people go on Facebook and say, "Oh, I did this charitable thing." Fuck you. Shut up about it.
Yeah.
Did you do it for the attention, for the Facebook post, or did you do it to actually help somebody? That's the weird thing about this country. Everybody does. You know, every time I go down the street, I live in a suburb of Minneapolis, and every guy in his 20s and 30s has a big Ford or Chevy or Dodge pickup truck. They never put anything in the fucking bed of the truck. It's the whole image. I got a truck, so I'm a big guy. Fuck, I learned a long time ago. I don't give a fuck what I drive. I just need to get where I'm going. But people are all about perception,
Yeah.
and when we talk about our government now, everything they do is performative. Everything is about perception, not about reality, not about truth, but what people perceive you. And it's all because people are insecure and they need to be seen as something different than they think they are. You
Yeah.
know, people have said that about Facebook, where they'll say, I post in Facebook the life I wish I had, as opposed to the life I'm actually living.
Yeah, I mean it's like, we buy things we don't need for people we don't like or want us to like them. I mean, it's just
Right.
I mean, humans are a social animal. They want other people to be jealous. That's the way it is. I mean, and I don't know. You live your life, I live my life, and that's like I remember when I was a payroll manager in my last job. And people would bitch about, well, so and so made this. I go, and I was telling one of my employees is like, if you're upset about what somebody else makes, you're in the wrong field. You can't do payroll because, there's going to be people that make more than you that probably do less than you that aren't as up the food chain as you. I mean, but it happens. And that's something that's never really, I've been lucky that I haven't never been jealous of somebody and the fact that the more money or whatever, because a lot of them can have more money than me and have a better job than me, have a better car than me. But I know one fucking thing: they ain't as good looking as me. So fuck them.
Well, that's exactly right. I've looked at things over my lifetime, and see people making more money, have higher positions. But I can always say, no matter what you got, you ain't cool as me.
And you gotta like in a sense love yourself. I mean, there's arrogance and then there's narcissism, but I mean you gotta be confident too, because I mean we talked about this, Mike. None of us gets out alive. I mean, and
No.
when you're pushing up daisies, you're not going to be worried about that car that, you had to impress John down the street. You know what I mean? Yeah, you messed up and you didn't get that girl, that date with, the girl, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's easy to say that now, but like when you're in it and you want to go out with somebody and she won't give you the time of day. I mean, it's just like, it's just something that it just builds character, and it's just something that, I will tell you right now, I could have been married a long time ago with a lot of stuff, but it's like, I noticed like in my 30s, like you were talking about, a lot of women wanted to have kids and they didn't care who it was.
Right, right. Exactly. Well, yeah, I know a couple of instances of that. Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
and I just know that person and I just knew that some girls that I was interested in, I mean, they made it like an obstacle course to go out with them and I just didn't do it. I mean, there's guys that'll break their neck for a woman to whatever and they'll pursue them, but I think if it's meant to be, it's meant to be and there'll be no fucking games. I know I'm very, and that's probably a big reason why I'm single because I didn't put up with the games.
Yeah.
But a lot of
Yeah.
those women, they're still single. I mean, I know why I'm still single, but I definitely know why they're still single.
You mentioned something about confidence, and I used to get people say to me, "Yeah, you're kind of cocky about that." And I always explain there's a thin line between confidence and cocky.
Yeah.
Confidence is you know what you know and you stand behind it. Cocky, you know everything and you won't shut up about it.
Yeah.
That's the cocky part of it. And if you can ride that thin line, but when you're confident, there's a lot of people that get mad at you about being confident because they lack total confidence and they
Yeah.
can't for the life of them understand how you can be confident when I'm fucking insecure. but that confidence is important. The way you are and the way you think is how your life's going to go. So to be afraid or insecure your whole life, you're kind of setting yourself up to have a fucked up life.
Yeah. And speaking of confidence, there's always
This is a
talk.
tra- this is a transition now,
That's
so
a
everybody
transition.
knows.
I'm transitioning over. Well, I'm wearing a Por Vida shirt, which, if you don't know what that means, it's for life, and it's for the San Antonio Spurs, who are probably one of the best teams going right now. They probably got the best player in the game, Victor Wembanyama. I probably said his name wrong, but they call him W down here. Well,
Yeah.
the All-Star game's going on, and there's always talk of the GOAT. You always hear, well, so and so's the GOAT, so and so's the king. And I always I don't really have a problem when they say the greatest of all time in sports because I think that's easier to determine than something like a movie actor or a musician or a rock band.
Yeah.
Like, who do you consider, Mike, your personal opinion? I don't know if you're a basketball fan, but who do you consider the greatest basketball player of all time since we're talking NBA right now?
Well, I, I'm not. I'm not a huge fan. Given my height, I never played. Um, I never played. Michael Jordan is the obvious choice. I'm just looking up something here though. Um, okay, I'm trying to compare the Spurs to my Timberwolves. You have 38 wins. Timberwolves have 34 wins. So we're kind of in the ballpark there.
Yeah.
And you have Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Well, we have Anthony Edwards, Ant too. He's a pretty. He's comparable to one of the top stars in the league. You got to remember the Lakers that we know of Los Angeles. They came out of Minneapolis, like in the late 50s, early 60s, and at that time, the Lakers had won 5 titles. They had people like um, George Mikan on it. And this goes way back. He was a great center. I think he was back then. And then for 30, 40 years, we didn't have a basketball team until the Wolves came in. And then for 35 years, hence then, they ain't been shit. So we haven't seen any goats. Well, maybe Kevin Garnett. He's one of them. He's not the goat of the goats. It's hard for me to pick basketball because I don't know it as well as other things. Michael Jordan's an easy pick. People always make the comparison between Michael Jordan and LeBron. I don't know how I would compare them. I'd still go with Michael Jordan probably, but San Antonio's had some pretty talented folks too.
Yeah, I think overall it's Jordan. I think, yeah, I mean, it's like LeBron's got more points, but LeBron didn't go to college. He came right out of high school. So he's had a longer career. But
Right,
LeBron's also done something that Michael Jordan didn't do, and that's lose in a finals. He
right.
lost a couple times to the Tim Duncan and the Spurs, once in Cleveland and once in Miami.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I think overall you got, I mean, even in wrestling, we all know that, to me, somebody like a Ric Flair would be the GOAT because he was there, 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. But Hulk Hogan was
right.
obviously the one that put wrestling on the map. I mean, it had its good run and everything. So you got that too. And you got football. I mean, I think Tom Brady is the GOAT of all time. Although I think that Joe Montana is pretty much there. And I just get so sick and I like Patrick Mahomes, but they start calling him the GOAT. And it's like, you know what? That in sports,
Yeah,
the GOAT thing is used too much. I mean, hell, they
it
call Peyton
is.
Manning over Brady. And I mean, Brady's obviously got the most rings. And Brady did something. He won a ring in each conference, the NFC and the AFC. I don't think anybody's ever done that. And he proved that he didn't need Belichick to win.
Right,
So I
right.
think, and you think about he's got what I think it's 7 rings. I mean, he could have 10, or like 9 or 10, because he lost a couple.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Tom Brady. Now it's weird with quarterbacks. I'm
Yeah.
older than you. When I was a young kid, the GOAT was Johnny Unitas.
Hmm.
He was the GOAT of all GOATs. Now, of course, passing back in that time wasn't what it was now. Then in the 70s, um, we got Fran Tarkenton back in the Minnesota Vikings uniform. And Fran was if you ever get a chance, if you don't know who Fran Tarkenton is, just go watch his highlights because his scrambling was fucking crazy. I mean, you think about scramblers now, and not even close. This guy was 5'11, 180, and nobody could catch him. But by the time he ended his career, he had the most passes, the most receptions, the most touchdowns. He was the GOAT at that point. But then we got Dan Marino that comes along, and he blows that out the doors. Um, and every so often you had new quarterbacks. The difference with Tom Brady is he's got a lot of records that I don't are going to be impossible to break. You know, the number of Super Bowls, everything. And the ironic thing about Tom Brady is he was a 6th round draft choice. When you look at his picture during uh, during the recruiting or whatever, he didn't have a lick of muscle on his body. Now he's a big, tall, good-looking guy with $3 billion. So uh, I would have to agree with you, Tom. I've never been a Tom Brady fan because I wasn't a Patriots fan. Definitely not a Belichick fan. But you can't deny what he did and what he accomplished. You just can't fucking deny it.
I'm more of a, I guess, I'm a player fan. Somebody accused me of that. Well, you're more of a player fan than you are a team fan, which I disagree with. I mean, because I'm a Cowboy fan, die hard. That's the first team I ever loved as a kid, watching Staubach,
Yep.
get beat by Terry Bradshaw. And and you look at that Staubach versus Bradshaw, Staubach was a way better quarterback. But the Steelers were a better team. I mean, overall
Yeah.
team. And Terry Bradshaw gets a lot of shit because he's a goofball nowadays, which I have nothing. I mean, I don't find. I think it's funny, you know what I mean? But he was a hell of a quarterback, and
Yeah.
who was the one where was it Hollywood Henderson that said that he couldn't spell cat if you gave him the C and the T or something like that? And one of the Cowboys that said that. I mean, it was just a bunch of trash talking. But the I can remember the Steelers beating us, and if there's a team that I should hate, it would be the Steelers. But there's two teams I really just hate as a Cowboys fan, and that's the Packers and that's the Eagles. And I tell people, well, why do you hate the Packers so much? He goes, I'm still pissed about the Ice Bowl, and I wasn't even fucking alive. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't like Green Bay. I don't like the Eagles. I don't like any of the Washington or the Giants. But any other team I can cheer for, I can find somebody to cheer for. Like this year, I was cheering for Seattle because the woman that owns them is, not what Kraft is, and that's,
Yeah.
supports MAGA. Uh, the Marcus Lawrence was a guy that played for the Cowboys, hell of a freaking defensive guy, won a ring. It's like you talk about Kevin Garnett. I mean, he had to leave Minnesota to go to Boston to win a ring. It's
Right.
like
Right.
like Marcus Ware, one of my favorite Cowboys of all time. He went to Denver and won a ring. And it's funny that these players like that, they go to these other teams and they win rings. Like Kevin Garnett went to Boston, and DeMarcus Ware went to Denver and stuff, but they retire. They retire with the teams they started with, when they go into the Hall of Fame. They go back and they sign these like 1 day contracts. But it just really sucks. And that's the one thing that's really, really sucks for me as a Cowboys fan is seeing them go to another team and win a ring. I'm happy for them. And it was, I talk about how much I hate the Packers. But when the Cowboys traded arguably one of their best players this last year and Michael Parsons to the
Yeah.
Packers, that stung. But, and I don't defend Jerry Jones a lot, but I think he made the right decision because Michael Parsons got hurt just by jogging along. Nobody hit him. Mahomes got hit and tore his ACL, but he was
Yeah.
just jogging. So I think Jerry made the right decision on this one. And like I said, I'll never do it. But that's what sucks kind of for us fans too, is that we watch our team lose. it's a bad day at the office for a lot of them. It's like, well, I had a bad day. I didn't send the TPS out reports out like, if it would have been one of us. I'm gonna go to Cancun and go back to my mansion with my Playboy model girlfriend. The fans are what really suffer. And I don't know if the players really look at like GOAT rankings like we do, because that term is thrown around a lot. Oh, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. And it shouldn't be thrown out a lot. And I know it's a talk, but I don't know. I will like, give you Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, but I don't think it's the same with music. I think when you call somebody, I mean, I think music's more subjective because you're not really doing like records. You're not doing passing records like in sports. You
Right.
know, you put an album out, a lot of people think Pink Floyd's the greatest of all time. I'm a Pink Floyd fan. A lot of people thought Nirvana was the greatest grunge band. I don't agree with that. I mean, I get they're okay, but I don't think music holds the same thing as sports does as it comes to the GOAT.
Well, people might disagree with me about this, but I think the difference between sports and music is more art, which means it's more subjective.
Yep.
You might like something that I don't like, or vice versa, and that's okay because we all have our preferences. I think we could all agree, being a Minnesota Viking fan, that in fact Green Bay Packers fucking suck.
Yeah,
And I'll be honest with you, in spite of you sitting here, we hate the fucking Dallas Cowboys too
I know you
because
do.
we got jobbed once on them. Some people are asking me, "Are you mad at Sam Darnold about going to Seattle and winning the Super Bowl?" Fuck no. I mean, Minnesota took him out of the dumpster, gave him this opportunity to shine for once and save his career, and he did. And he gave us 14 wins in a season. Of course, he fucked up in the playoffs, but then he goes off to Seattle because the Vikings let him go. And I don't even know that that was a bad move to let him go because it was kind of a risk to put $100 million into a quarterback that had one good year. Because we've seen that before. One good year, give them $100 million, and then they suck. And I thought he might suck if he went to Seattle because I didn't know how good Seattle was. But the fact that he went there and won the Super Bowl, I think it's fantastic because he seems like a decent kid.
Yeah.
He seems like a decent guy. Now, I was talking about Fran Tarkenton being the GOAT. Fran Tarkenton had been to the Super Bowl with the Vikings three fucking times, lost every one of them.
Hmm.
So he could never be regarded the GOAT because he never won the big game, whether it was his fault or not. And you say Tom Brady, of course, he accomplished more things. Now with music, there are some people I look at GOATs. For me, that's just somebody like Elvis Presley. This guy was iconic and kind of, he created, well, I won't say he created because a lot of black artists created it, but at the time, black artists weren't allowed by society to break through as much. I mean, Little Richard was as good as Elvis in many things, but Elvis was just that guy. He wasn't a songwriter, he wasn't really a musician, but his personality, his look, the way he sang, it just captured everybody's attention at that time, and it was very iconic. And I think a lot of musicians look back and appreciate that because of how he was able to command the attention and a stage. He wasn't the Prince was far more talented overall than Elvis was, but if not for Elvis, Prince may not have happened.
Yeah. I will, you talk about music being subjective. I will guarantee you that I'm going to disagree with you on Elvis right now, and you'll probably disagree with me there. Like on as far as career, who was better? I mean, this is like your opinion versus my opinion, and I know we're probably going to disagree with this. I put Johnny Cash above Elvis.
Okay. So yeah,
But see,
my
that's
mom was
the
a big, my mom's, she was the biggest fan of Johnny Cash. And at the time, when I was young, I was not much into country music. I appreciate Johnny Cash now for his talents and who he was and all that stuff. I never saw Johnny Cash as a guy who could sing, and he was more.
Really?
No, I didn't like his voice. It sounded a little monotone to me, and
Yeah.
and and now as I get older, I get it. I get it. I like Johnny Cash right now, and he is iconic. I don't. I mean, they knew each other. They were in the same studio together. They were peers,
Yeah.
but it was just two different things.
Yeah.
And my preference would be Elvis over Johnny Cash, but I like Johnny Cash too.
Oh, I mean, I love Elvis, but I like the Elvis, the comeback special Elvis. I
Yeah.
like that. That's what I like. I like a lot of the 70s Elvis, before he got, too bloated. But like if I had to pick who would I would take, Johnny Cash or Elvis, it would be Elvis, it would be Johnny Cash. And that wasn't always the case because I was always an Elvis fan for longer. And I mean, to me, it's like anything. It's like, who do you think is better? And it's like, well, I like them better because I like more of their stuff. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
which band is better? It's like, well, I like this band better, but that doesn't mean they're the GOAT. But I think, when you talk about greatest of all time in rock and roll, I think there's one band that stands out, and people can disagree with me, but I think longevity alone does it, and that's the Stones. Because I mean, you think about every decade they've had like a good run with stuff. I mean, even into the
Yeah.
90s and early 2000s, they were making, groundbreaking, not groundbreaking albums, but they were making some pretty good music. And I don't think any other band has sustained that longevity like they have. And now we're starting to see, sadly, I mean, when Keith Richards is calling it a day and he doesn't want to tour, it's pretty much over. Because, I mean, to me, when they talk about also like who's the greatest guitarist, and to me, that's Keith Richards because I love that Stone sound. I,
Yeah.
I think he's very, I mean, but then again, I love Jimmy Page. I love Jimi Hendrix. But, I don't know. I guess I don't throw around GOAT as much in music because it's subjective as much as I do in sports. Because Fran Tarkenton, man, he should be on Mount Rushmore just because of That's Incredible, bro. That was a great show growing up, man. I remember that's where I knew him from.
I
Uh,
would I was pretty young when that was on, and I was thinking of a parody show to take off on. Now that's incredible. For those people who don't know, they would have these people come on, real life people, and they would do these incredible things, you know. And I thought, I was thinking a little ahead of my time. I was thinking because later on we had the Joe Rogan one, Fear Factor,
yeah.
that crazy shit. I was a little ahead of my time, and I said we should do a show called "That's Fucking Crazy," like running a car into a brick wall or jumping off a cliff with no parachute. And everybody go, now that's fucking crazy, because they would have the audience say, "That's incredible." Um, yeah, Fran did well. I mean, Fran got to be very wealthy in business after he left. I mean, because I'll be honest with you, they didn't make a lot of money. In the 60s and 70s, football players didn't make that much money. In fact, a lot of the football players that played for the Vikings, they had a off-season job working for Key Cadillacs, selling Cadillacs. It wasn't anything like it is now. They make 50 grand a year, which was a lot for the time, but not enough to sustain a star's lifestyle.
Well, that's like Roger Staubach. I mean, he didn't really make a lot of his money in football. He's like a really rich now because he did in real estate.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a lot of like you think about the old days in baseball. Like I read interviews like Stan Musial from the Cardinals, he had to work a regular job. I mean, they had a lot of them like in the off season, they'd have to work regular jobs. And that happens still, which with baseball, which is kind of sad, is that we have a team down here called the San Antonio Missions. They're the farm team of the Padres.
right.
And I was talking to one of them, and they got to work regular jobs. Baseball doesn't pay them enough to where they can really even survive on the road, which you would think baseball would take care of the farm system, but they don't. And there's going to be a strike next year, evidently, because the owners want a salary cap, but the players in the union doesn't, of course. I don't know if baseball can survive that. I mean, it barely. It took a lot to come back from that other strike they had. I mean, it was McGuire and Sosa that saved it. And now, everybody's so damn high and mighty about, they loved them when they were, on those runs, but they don't want to put them in the Hall of Fame now. But yeah, I would think that I don't know, I got off on baseball there, but yeah, it got to the point to where these industries made all this money and it can get these guys out there to work. But yeah, I mean that was even up to the 70s, to like Staubach and Tarkenton. But yeah, it was probably a good gig for him. And I remember watching That's Incredible because it was like when I was a little kid, it was one of the first shows, kind of like In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, that was on in the 70s to talk
Right,
about
right.
they had an article. And I would suggest somebody if you like ghost stories to look it up on YouTube. It was That's Incredible, where they stayed overnight with a parent. I think it was late 70s, early 80s, in a Toys R Us, and like that was haunted. They got these reports of haunted. It was a pretty credible source. I mean, it wasn't making fun of stuff. It was actually one of the first serious ones. But they had a lot of stories on there about. It was almost a modern take at the time on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah.
I liked that show back in the late 80s when they did the one with Jack Palance, Believe It or Not. Jack Palance was a freak, dude. He was a freak.
Yeah, he I liked him, but he
I
was
did too.
weird. Well, the whole thing, when you look at sports right now and you see somebody getting 20, 30, $40 million a year, that's what they were getting. It was the late 70s. I was covering the Twins. I was down on the field, and we had a player on the Minnesota Twins that was arguably the best player in baseball at the time. His name was Rod Carew. He just finished the season batting 388. Now think
Wow.
about that. Who bat and winning gold hitting titles and glove titles, and he was probably the hottest baseball player in all of baseball. He signed a contract, and you have to understand, Calvin Griffith was our owner. Cheapest motherfucker you've ever seen. We hated that guy because he was so cheap. But he signed a crazy breakthrough contract, and it may have been the start of all these big salaries. But he was the highest paid player in all of sports, I think, at this time. And he signed a contract for $800,000 a year, which is a lot of money in the 70s. But you can compare it today to somebody making 35 million like Mahomes or something like that. Not even fucking close. But that was the breaking point. And offensive linemen at the time didn't make shit. They gave him 50 grand and told him to go out there and kill yourself. And over the years, now these offensive linemen have become very valuable. Now they're making millions of dollars. Um, and that money in sports, I think, has made a huge difference because now we're not just dealing with athletes
Agents. Yeah.
or elite athletes. We're dealing with people who are in the elite level financially.
Mm.
Somebody like Tom Brady, he's worth $1 billion right now, $500 million or something like that. That's fucking crazy.
But
Fran
the worst,
Tarkenton never made that much money. Staubach never made that much money just off of who he was.
hell, Troy Aikman didn't make that much money. I mean, there was something
No,
I saw that guys won 3 rings, but he still didn't, make what he does. What Brady's made the most money from? It was his contract with Fox because he signed a 10-year deal. Because I mean, you look at football, they still don't make as much as like NBA or baseball, which you get because, you play more games, especially in baseball.
right, right.
It's funny with me, it's like, they talk about Willie Mays, they still want to call him the greatest of all time, home run wise. No, that's Barry Bonds. Because he doesn't, they want to, not look at that stuff. But the guy was playing, it's just like, he has the most home runs. Was he wrote it up? Probably. He's got a big ass head, but I don't know. I mean, he's got a big ass head, physically and mentally.
Yeah,
But I mean, he has the record. And they it's like Pete Rose. They want to deny him being in the Hall of Fame, but the guy, I mean, it's like OJ taking his Heisman out of the fucking Hall of Fame. I mean, he didn't kill anybody on the field. I mean, literally. But I mean, it's like these records still count, and you just can't ignore them.
Well, I
And I,
think I think the OJ thing is different than the Barry Bonds thing because he had his college career, he won the Heisman, he played pro sports, and then he killed a couple people.
yeah,
All that stuff happened before anything bad happened with OJ Simpson. So it is what it was at the time. Barry Bonds being drugged up, doing steroids and stuff like that, that's a little different in that that was um, an enhancement drug that may or may not have helped him hit those home runs. I don't know that it played as big a role because that may have given him more power, but you still got to hit this little fucking ball coming at you 100 miles an hour. I don't think he should be totally discounted, but he should have to pay some penance for cheating because he knew it was cheating and he did it anyway.
yeah, I agree. But I mean, then at the time, it wasn't really illegal. It's like the McGuire and Sosa thing. I think, I mean, you can really get on. You can give McGuire a pass, but Sosa with the corked bat, that's one thing. But everybody was cheering them on, and now, I mean, you had a football player say something that was actually pretty smart. And I think it's the fallout from the Belichick, Hall of Fame snub. And it's like if you have never played the game, you shouldn't really get a chance to vote. It should be of your peers. I totally agree with that.
Oh,
I
I
think
agree too.
it's kind of like the Baseball Hall of Fame. They're the biggest fucking stuck-up snobs there are.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of just, these guys that are doing this that never played the game. But it's like the halftime show. People getting upset about that. And people get upset about the Hall of Fame. It's a fucking glorified museum. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be this difficult to put people in there. And another fucking thing that talking about Hall of Fames that came out this week is Gene Simmons from Kiss sitting there saying, "Well, hip hop shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame." Bullshit. I
Yeah.
call bullshit. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the one thing worse about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that it has the name rock and roll. And what
Yeah.
these aging fucking rock stars like Gene, and I love Kiss, you know that, the
Yeah.
music, but rock and roll is as much attitude as it is a freaking genre. You can't tell me hip hop's not fucking rock and roll. Bullshit. Some of the stuff that Chuck D and Public Enemy were talking about, NWA were talking about, not my thing. But that's culture changing. That's what rock and roll is. Rock and roll is a movement. It's not just a genre. And when you say that these people don't. I mean, yeah, it should be called the Music Hall of Fame. But rock and roll, and they're never going to change that either. And what
No.
people get in these arguments about, it's about a fucking glorified museum. I mean, I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this past summer. There's a lot of artists in there that probably should. I mean, Robert Johnson, is he rock and roll? Not considered what I consider rock and roll. Hank Williams, no, but they're in the Hall of Fame because it all music is. I don't know. I just get on my soapbox about kind of Hall of Fames, and it's just a stupid argument. It's
Well,
just because
it is a stupid argument. I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and it was cool. I'm a
yeah,
little disappointed because there's a lot of people that are excluded that shouldn't be. But if
right.
you want to talk about whether hip hop should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, should ABBA? ABBA's in the Hall of Fame. Um,
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin. Now she's one of the greatest of all time, but is she really doing rock and roll? She's doing R&B, and she's the best there ever was that did it. Um, the Beastie Boys are in there, and I think that makes some sense because, like you say, they were iconic. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday isn't a rock and roll artist, but she's in there, and I think you make a good point. It's about an attitude. You got Brenda Lee in there. This
Mhm.
little girl singing "Rock Around the Christmas Tree."
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that people say they shouldn't be in there, but there's a lot of people in there that without question should be in there and aren't. And that's got to be a political thing or just
I
getting your
I
buddies in.
I look at it, it's, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, maybe it should have been called the Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
If it was called the Music Hall of Fame, it's like, well, that's not, what my idea of music is. I mean, we sit here and we argue about these Hall of Fames and these goats and stuff, and it kind of takes away from just enjoying it. I mean, because I look at something too when you talk about rock and roll. I mean, is I saw some of these grunge bands are in there. They didn't consider themselves rock and roll, and they're in there.
right, right.
I mean, it is. And to me, rock and roll is more of an attitude than a genre. And I just, I can, if I like it, I like it, and I can say, hey, and a lot of people can say Kiss shouldn't be in there because they were more gimmick than they were music. I mean, I don't agree with that, but a lot of people say that too. So, no,
I,
stay in your
I'm not a
lane,
big
dude.
I'm not a big fan of Kiss. Was not something I don't dislike them, but I just
Yeah.
wasn't taken by them. My question is, why does a 75, 80-year old man who's already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who's had his career, has
Yeah,
had his day in the sun, is worth a ton of money? Why are you even wading into that? Why do you fucking care?
because Gene Simmons is one of the people, he's like Trump, that he thinks that, any publicity is good publicity. I mean, he's the one that, I mean, he got a lot of blowback because he said something about, well, he when Ace Frehley died, and if there's anybody who was in Kiss that was rock and roll, and that's Ace Frehley. I mean, he was the
Yeah,
one that inspired the most. He was the rock. I mean, you think about the face of Kiss, it's Gene. You think about the voice, it's Paul. But Ace Frehley inspired a lot of kids to play music. You know what I mean? He was probably the rock star. I mean, he lifestyle and music wise. He fell when he died, and Gene Simmons said, "Well, people don't fall and die." Motherfucker, yeah, they do. Not when they have fucking, people waiting on them hand and foot, but people fucking fall down and die all the fucking time. And
yeah,
it's just like he said that when Prince died. He said something about he just didn't understand substance abuse. You were a motherfucking sex addict, bitch. I mean, we all
yeah.
have our fucking things. So, and I think him and like Paul got into it about Prince, but yeah, you should, what you don't know anything about is like, it's like, me, going after, barbershops,
Well,
yeah, in the past I went, but not anymore, bitch.
well, you said that Gene is like Trump, and he is in the
Oh,
sense
yeah,
that,
he is.
I used to watch his reality TV show, and I've heard his interviews. He is without question a narcissist. He thinks he's the most important person there is. He thinks he's the most impressive person he is, and I think he's just an arrogant, polarizing piece of shit. And that's maybe why I don't like Kiss as much. Ace Frehley. Um, he died when he was about 75 years old. They're about early 70s, 75, something like that.
He wasn't quite 75, no.
Uh, well, he was born in 51. He died in, well, whatever. He was in his 70s. Plus,
Yeah.
he led a hard life. He had addiction and he was probably frail. I see people my age at 65 who led a hard life. They are frail. They're on the precipice of death. And to suggest, and for, and for, and for Gene Simmons to talk shit about Prince, come on. Prince was 10 times
Oh,
the
yeah.
musical artist that Gene Simmons was. Gene
Yeah.
Simmons wasn't a great talent. It was the group that was great, not Gene Simmons.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But, I mean, yeah, he was 74. I didn't know he was that old. Okay. Yeah. And just, just some shit you shouldn't talk about. It's like Trump going on about Savannah Guthrie's mom was kidnapped by fucking the cartel. I mean, it's just like, Grandpa, people ask me all the time, like, well, what do you think about that? I go, he's just that old uncle that that, doesn't really understand anymore, that, just, like, there's this TikTok thing on there where it's like, these two young people are there with their grandparents, right? And it's like, hey, so and so, hey, so and so, and then the grandmother goes, "Oh, hi, how you doing? Everything," and she's all being nice, and you have that they go to the grandpa. Well, we lost Uncle Fred over the weekend. It's like, dude, it's like what? It's just like, dude, it's just that I don't know. It's just that old person that you just got to kind of ignore. And when you
Yeah.
talk about, people, you see them at 65 your age. I see them at my age around 50. When I see people, when I see somebody like famous die, oh, he was 55. I'm like, fuck. You know what I mean? And it's really, I'm at that age right now where I see people die and they're like, not 60 yet. I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah.
That's very, and we used to think that, 55, 60, that was a good life. But now, shit, man. I mean, people are striving to live 100 nowadays, and that's not uncommon as it used to be. I mean, but you just got these people that just, they're just in their world. They're the get off my lawn stuff. They don't, I mean, what Gene Simmons has become, he's become that very thing that he used to be against. Like there's
Yeah.
a song called Shout It Out Loud. Don't let them tell you the music's too loud, they're too old to really understand. Well, that's what Gene's become. He's become too old to understand.
Well, he's kind of the epitome of the hippie era.
Yeah.
The hippie era, free love, peace, stop the war, give women the rights, civil rights, and all that stuff. But then they get older, they get a little money, and now they get protective and greedy of that money. And Gene Simmons is a greedy, self-centered motherfucker. I don't
Oh, yeah.
care what anybody says. He just is. He was probably a different personality way back when in the '60s and stuff, but today he's grown into his greatest nemesis. The things that they hated about old people back then, now they've become.
And it's sad because his story's really like when he came to America, it's a really good story because
Yeah.
his
Oh,
mom,
he's an immigrant? Let's
yeah,
deport that motherfucker.
he came from his mom was a survivor from Auschwitz. And and that's why he said he never drank or smoked because it would be, a slap in her face. But he came to America not knowing English, not knowing everything, and he's one of those people that have forgotten where they came from. And you
Yeah.
hear about these stars. I heard us about Streisand too, and that you can't even look at them, when you're next to them shooting a movie with them. And you never forget where you fucking came from, because where you came from, we're both going back to, and that's called the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said earlier, on your last day, last minute of last day, all the fame and fortune and all the toys and all the possessions you have mean absolutely nothing. All you have left is the memories. So you better have some fucking good ones.
Yeah, and it's the thing about you listen, you look at people too, and you look about their legacy, and not everybody is gonna like leave a legacy. But you'd like people, I mean, I'd like to be remembered as somebody that, no, he was a nice guy. He helped me out. He did whatever. I mean, yeah, I didn't donate, $2 million to Habitat for Humanity or whatever, but I'd like to be remembered, as a nice guy, and that's your legacy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and there's people there that are gone, and yeah, they say the nice things about them, but all that guy was just a real dick. And I think that, it doesn't really get you anywhere, but if you're better remembered as, somebody that's nice than being a dick, I think you've already won. Why be that person? I think a lot of people need to go through the whole Scrooge thing to where they see their life and they realize how they treat others. Because I think the world would be a lot better if we just fucking chill out and just, not be a Richard all the time. You don't always have to fucking, cut that car off in the freeway. Let somebody fucking over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wave at that person for doing that. I mean, I think if we just, took the time to do that and took the time to be nicer, I mean, the world would be a lot better place. I mean, I definitely don't think we'd be in this fucking situation we are right now if we just weren't a bunch of dicks sometimes.
At my advanced age, I the lesson I've learned is anything that happened in the past, forget about it. Too many people drag themselves down for what was in the past, and they worry too much about the future. I found out if you just do what you're supposed to do today, the future will be cool. You'll be fine. So just focus on being the good person and doing the right things today. You'll make mistakes. You'll be a dick some days.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. But if you try to do the best you can now, the future will be fine. In the past, who gives a fuck? It's over with. Um, Different times, different people. Well, we're coming to the end here, Jace. So we're going to wrap things up. Nice to sit down and talk to you about something other than what we normally talk about. Um,
Yeah, and we talked about Valentine's Day earlier. I want to just kind of leave you with a couple movies, the suggestion that I watched last night. A lot of people went
okay.
on everything. I watched a couple movies. One was I think we've talked about this one before. It's Bob Odenkirk. What's his name? That was on Better Call Saul. He was in a movie called Nobody.
Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, Odenkirk. He was in a movie called Nobody, and I don't remember watching it, but I saw the second one's out, so I want to watch that one. So I watched that one. That's one I suggest. And another one that I would suggest if you have HBO, it's on HBO. It's called Alto Kings. Alto Kings with De Niro. He plays a dual role. These two gangsters based on a true story. It's pretty good. I like De Niro. I know a lot of people don't like De Niro because he's very vocal, but I've always loved De Niro.
I like
But
him.
the Alto Kings, and
I'll check that out.
yeah, and it's about a couple of gangsters that grew up together, and I forgot the guy's name, but it's on HBO. It's called The Alto Kings, Alto Alto, and the Alto Knights. Sorry, and it's about Robert De Niro as Frank Castillo and Vito Genovese. So he plays a dual role. So it's pretty good. It came
Re-
out
uh,
and
yeah,
it's Gino
Giovanni Ribisi.
uh Geno. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Vito Genovese. Yeah. Frank Castillo in that. So it's pretty good. I mean it's pretty good. I love mob movies, so if you get a chance to watch those, I would suggest those. So that's just kind of
I do.
my.
I do too. And I've seen Nobody and Nobody Too with Bob Odenkirk. They're
I'm gonna
fun
watch.
movies.
I'm gonna watch Nobody 2 now because I actually had to get a. I don't have cable, but I actually purchased Peacock for last week to watch Super Bowl. So I wasn't boycotting the Bad Bunny halftime show. He had a lot of Latinas dancing, man. That was man. If you're a red-blooded American male, like some of these mouth breathers claim to be, you would have enjoyed that and just turn the volume down if you didn't understand it. I understood it, but I didn't understand it. But hey, the scenery was great, and I ain't talking about Bad
I
Bunny.
I didn't understand. I didn't understand a word, but I got the message. I mean, that's it's not even the pretty women. It was the whole vibe of it was kind of
Yeah, great.
uplifting and inspirational, and you made you feel good when it's over with. And that's what music is all about, really.
Yeah, and I thought it was good, man. It's not my thing, but you know what I mean? It's like not everything's about me anymore. It's the 18 to what is it 18 to 34 something like that they try to get the that's like the prime spot for real estate or
Yeah,
for advertising. I'm way
yeah.
past fucking 34 and a lot of people that were upset about it are too. So, and now they want to investigate like you were saying they want to investigate him. And it's like, "Oh yeah, let's go after what are we going to call Bad Bunny Nipplegate Part 2?" Jesus Christ, people.
Yeah, that's fucking stupid. All right, Jace, thanks very much for those of you listening. I hope you have a great day. If you haven't heard the regular podcast today, you'll be pleased to know that Jace is also on that show.
Or
So
maybe not.
it's all Jace Sunday with the Rational Boomer. All right. Well, thank you very much. Hope you all have a great day, and we will talk to you again next week.